What's up? This is Greg from Prechorus, and I'm still teaching you all of Dream Theater's first record, When Dream and Day Unite. And this is track number 2, Status Seeker. So I said a lot of introductory things in the video for Fortune and Lies. A lot of caveats here about how I'm approaching the solos and especially like the fact there are multiple guitars on the record, which guitar that I chose to use. So if you've got questions, watch that video. So without further ado, the beginning of Status Seeker, which got that nice keyboard melody in the beginning. We've got a 5/4 and 6/4 alternating, but sometimes with Dream Theater, you don't have to get too caught up in the time signatures, because if you follow a melody, it's really easy. Following that keyboard melody is really easy, at least in my mind. It's super catchy. So so that's really what's happening here. You just got to make sure that you're hitting these chords in the right place. We're starting off with the aforementioned reinforced power chord F, and then a C major bar chord. Got that ring finger to get the third of the chord, and then B flat, F power chord, and then back to C power chord. I listened really carefully to hear whether or not, whether it's sometimes a C major with that E ringing in there with a third of the chord, or if it's just a 3-note power chord. This is my best guess. They are somewhat interchangeable. In this context, of course, there's no C minor going on, where that would sound bad. But without further ado, so that's the first part. You got a little bit of rests in between each one too. I'm just using my right hand to damp the strings. That means you can change chords nice and easily. That goes twice in a row. Then the next part gets a little funkier. Kind of wish he had done this one more, because this is such a cool little lick and he only does it once. Instead of B flat, he hits B flat sus2, and then a little F major, then F sus2, and then this nice little 3-note thing that goes along with the keyboard melody. So this measures. And that stuff's a little ringy at the end of it too. So I'll play starting from measure 3. All right, then the melody goes off the rails a little bit on the next part, gets a little bit different. And what's neat about this, but also a little confusing if you don't know the song super well, is measure 5, 6, 7. In measure 7, he starts the keyboard melody again, but he only does the first measure of it, and then starts the keyboard melody yet again in a new key. And that's the part that repeats, the last part that repeats on this line. So starting from measure 5, where we have a slightly different melody, and then only the first half of the melody. Now we're starting the melody again in a new key, in the key of F. So we've got first inversion B flat chord, but using the open D, which is a kind of neat sound. I'm not 100% sure he's playing these chords here, but they make the most sense based on everything else that was happening, so that's where I'm doing it. And then, now this one, you could probably call me out on this and tell me this is not where he's playing this, but it makes the next part make a hell of a lot of sense. I have never seen John Petrucci use this version of a major chord. Certainly not beyond him though. But this would be like a D-shaped chord, but instead of D, up 1 fret, E flat. I see this a lot in classical music, but other than this song, and it's my transcription, I can't even name a rock song where we play a major chord like that. But if you can, let me know in the comments. So E flat, I'm playing it here. And then B flat with open D. And the reason I'm using this particular shape is because then you get this really nice F sus4 to F in that position. So so this part again, we're playing the melody, the keyboards are playing melody in a different key. And it's actually pretty hand-friendly once you can get over that slightly heinous chord to grab that E flat. So that's our keys intro. Now we got the guitar intro. Another great example of where Petrucci pretty much always plays this differently than what's on the record. But what's on the record is really cool here. He actually makes it easier, which is surprising. He doesn't do that very often. But this is this little, he's basically doing this little like G sus4 arpeggio where he's going root 4-5. It's very, very idiomatic Dream Theater thing, especially Petrucci, to play the same lick in 3 different octaves, which we guitar players should know works out really nicely in standard tuning. If you move it 2 frets up and 2 strings over. Once you get past the stupid B string, or including the B string, you got to move it up 3 frets. So that's what's going on in the beginning of this intro solo. However, when he does it on the record, he's putting some 16th notes in sort of random places, kind of unpredictable places. So instead of just, it's, so you got a little 16th note in that first measure. You'll also notice that I'm ignoring the measures a little bit here. We are in 4/4, but since he's got that 3-note phrase, it's 9/8 notes. But I'm not worried about the measures yet. I just want to get all those phrases nice and clear. And then he goes back to the middle octave. So he does the same thing 3 times in a row with 1 batch of 16ths, if you want to play it like the record. Then he does something that confounded me for a little while, but I'm pretty sure I got it. He does a little F power chord arpeggiated. You'll notice I have a note in parentheses there because I think he's barring it and unintentionally getting that note to ring, because you can hear it on the record. Although this is a hairy thing to transcribe because there's a lot of delay on this as well. So I leave that note off, but I just wanted to acknowledge it's there. And in the second octave, or the higher octave of the F power chord he plays, an 8th and then 2 16ths. Then he's back to his G. And on the last one, he does that batch of 16th notes again and just completes the octave. So the whole beginning of the solo, I'll do a little bit on the slow side. Is that right? Yeah, sorry, that's right. All right. Simple enough in context. Well, actually pretty tricky, but the idea is easy. And again, when I'm looking at a transcription, I say again because I said this in the last video, if you're keeping up. When I'm looking at a transcription, I really want to understand what's going on other than like where to plunk my fingers, because it also helps me make more sense. You're looking at these tab numbers that may look somewhat random, but once you realize he's moving around that same shape, it gets a lot easier. Then you've got that run at the end. We are just doing a 16th note run. We are doing the G minor scales. Excuse me, G minor scale here. And a little G Dorian 5th lick on top. That 5th lick, by the way, is going to come back in a lot of different solos here. He really likes doing that kind of thing where he's sliding around the power chord shape like that. But once again, that G minor run, you should be up on your alternate picking here. And that's just the slide up is what leads him to this. Oh, actually, these are not all 5ths here. It's a minor 6. Ending on a 5th. After that bit, there is this descending thing. This is very similar to something that he's doing in Pull Me Under, at the end of the Pull Me Under solo. It's a little slower here. Another one where I'm about 90% sure I've got this one right. I think he plays it a little differently live, and there's so much delay on this solo that I could be a little wrong, but he's doing this. All right, so now let me think about it. It's G minor. But there's a little chromatic note at the end of it. This makes it 1 full measure to do the whole run. And then, of course, after you've done that 1 full measure of a whole run, then he starts it over and does the exact same run again. Only difference being, since the first part incorporates the G to B string, remember they're tuned a little funny, they're major 3rd instead of a perfect 4th, so your fret jump as you move this shape is going to be a little different. Got to move down 1 fret. Then the second half of the run is actually easier. You don't have to do that 1 fret jump. Now, live, especially in that 2004 performance, the aforementioned, he slides down to a D, and the whole band actually takes a break here and then starts the verse. On the record, there's no break there, so I actually did not include that D in this transcription because I wanted it to be kind of neat. But the way that I play along with this is I'll let that D hang over and come in on measure 3 of the verse. But if you don't want to, you want to come right in on the downbeat of the verse, no problem. Another thing that he plays pretty differently live, but it's a cool part. So before I do the verse though, I'll do that whole intro solo for you. And there's my ending note. So on the verse, we got some really cool, inversions of chords. Petrucci plays this pretty differently in modern shows live, but again, this should be pretty close to what's on the record. You got E minor add 9, a D minor add 9, your normal D minor bar chord with the open E on top, and then he's just changing the changing the bass note to A, and then G. If you really wanted to give this chord a name, you could call it G13 sus. Because we got a root, 7, the 13 or the 6, and the 4 is where the sus comes in. So here's the verse. Now the second half of the verse, a cool little progression to get to his G. This also may be an amalgamation of guitar parts, but it's all very doable as one part. So, and of course that repeats, so second time of the verse. Right. Now the pre-chorus is, the timing is really tough to follow. The drums are doing something that I haven't really bothered analyzing, and even the vocals start in a strange place. But if we just focus on the guitar part, everything is actually still in 4/4. So, and it's just one hit that's in an odd place, and then everything kind of works itself out afterwards. So if we're coming at the end of the verse, we've just hit, and we've got that G ringing into the next measure of 20. If you're looking at the tab, you'll see nothing. Sorry, 26. So if you're looking at the tab, you're going to see nothing, but if you look up at the notes, you'll see that G hanging out there. Whenever, and this is really important, whenever I'm playing something with a pickup, I have two choices. I can play what's before, and you know, I could go 1, 1, 2. Yeah, sorry, 1, 1, and then hang it over. But that pickup is so long, and just pulling one note out of there would make the phrase really weird. So instead of playing the pickup in this instance, I'll just count that note as a rest. Now, you might be saying, no shit, Greg, that's really obvious, but for me, that was a total revelation. So if I start on the pre-chorus, I'm gonna leave a beat and a half rest, and then everything's gonna work out. 1, 2. And then the second half, you know I've always believed in you as a lyric here. The second half, it makes much more timing sense. So our whole pre-chorus with the rest before, starting with the rest, not including the pickup then. And those hits, bam, bam, bam. You'll notice that that's really easy to feel. That's a very common rhythm. That's our dotted eighth, a dotted quarter followed by another dotted quarter, but written as an eighth tied to a quarter, so we can see where the downbeat is, and then followed by another quarter, no matter what else it's tied to. Such a popular rhythm, right? Because we actually saw that in Fortune and Lies in the pre-chorus in a very different context, but it's the same groove. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Just not so fast here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then holds out for the rest of the measure. So then we get to the chorus. Now, another one where, depending on the era that you're listening to Dream Theater, Petrucci plays this pretty differently. Now, on the record, this is absolutely two different guitars. There's one guitar just playing power chords, which is what Petrucci does now, and there's another guitar arpeggiating behind. But this one's easy enough, and actually sounds really great, to arpeggiate the chords. And there's a 90s performance I found of them doing this, where he is playing it actually pretty much the way I have it. So, while this isn't exactly what's on the record, this is combining the guitar parts that are on the record, and it should sound pretty straight, pretty dead on. So, D minor add 9 again. Let me get that timing right. So the timing here is actually a little funny too. Don't rely on the vocals because the vocals don't line up super perfectly with this. That open A is on the upbeat of 1. So you got to keep good track of your first measure. Dum, 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 and dum, bum. And then after the open A, the B flat's on a downbeat, and then that's a beat and a half, so the C power chord is on an upbeat. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So another Petrucci favorite, we're back to our good old sus2 chord. I'm only striking the power chord at first, but then arpeggiating the top of the sus2. And then we've got that nice scale run. The next measure, so halfway through that line. The vocal line goes right with those hits, so that should be pretty easy to hit on. The next measure of the chorus is the same as the first, but watch out because the run is a tiny bit different. And then you've got the last two measures. Now those three big chords I'm hitting at the end, C sus2, F with A in the bass, and B flat sus2. Pretty sure there's a clean guitar in the background, like nice chorusy sounding guitar hitting those chords, and the electric guitar is just hitting power chords. And well, the minor 6 or the first inversion F, just 2 notes. But you know what? It sounds cool enough with distortion to hit those full chords. So I'll play you the whole chorus. 1, 2, ready, and. So if you know anything about musical direction, you might spot 2 coda up there. But if you know enough about musical direction, you're going to know we're totally ignoring that right now. And we're moving on to verse 2. The beginning of verse 2, this may be a decision that was made in mixing, because I do not hear any rhythm guitar right at the beginning of verse 2. It comes in on beat 2. But live, John Petrucci starts hitting this D right away. I'm playing it more like the record, so I'm going to rest for exactly 1 measure. In the garden. So during that, I'm not playing anything. I'm coming in on beat 2. Also live, there's a great shot where you can see John Petrucci clearly alternate picking this. But on the record, it sounds a little more driving than that. So I'm going to do all downstrokes here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we get our John Petrucci's favorite G5 chord at the end of that. You also notice that in the transcription, palm mute ends on a certain thing. It's not really like that. It's more like he crescendos out of the palm mute. We see that in a bunch of places. you're playing along with the record, just go with the feel of everything. The whole band's kind of doing that together. Now, pre-chorus 2 is a pretty unique thing. Over the chord progression, which is presumably the same as pre-chorus 1, but I didn't really bother to listen to it the same way. Or actually, it may be totally different. I think the chord progression is, it should be the same. It should be D minor or D minor 7 to A minor, and then G major. But he's got this sort of like almost like classic rock kind of bit under it, which is pretty cool. And so it's really just a bunch of fourths stuff. What you're doing when you're playing fourths like that over a chord, over like, so D is the root, and you're playing a fourth, which might make you think that you're playing like fifth and root of an F chord, for example, C and an F. What you're really doing is completing a D minor 7. And again, in my mind, it's a very classic rock thing. So he's doing that on both the D, puts a little movement on there by going up to that note, but there's not really a full chord change there. And then over the A. And actually, it sounds like he's hitting the open E and B here, so he's making an A minor 9. Pretty cool, like extra. And while the band goes to G, I think Petrucci just kind of ignores that on the first half of the pre-chorus and just stays on this, basically what would be an inverted C power chord. You can think of the whole thing as like one big A minor 9 or A minor 7 measure. So the first line of the pre-chorus. And the second line of the pre-chorus is similar, just the riff's a tiny bit different. A little bit different in rhythm. But here he goes to G with the rest of the band. And then back to the D minor 7, even though the band isn't doing it, it kind of fits in here. You can think of it as completing a G7 sus, but you know, that gets to the question of, do you really want to analyze every single thing happening in the song? Cool for informational purposes, but it fits in the key, so it works, right? Then you'll also notice right at the end of that pre-chorus, there's 3 open strings. Doesn't happen that often in Dream Theater, but generally if I see just a random open string bit, yeah, it's the G chord's still happening, but it's usually like a pick noise as I'm going into the next thing. So don't obsess too much over that chord. Don't let that chord stop you from doing what musical direction tells us to do, which is DS al coda. If you do know your musical direction, you know that we go back to the sign, which of course was the chorus. So we go back to the chorus as is. At the end, I'm not going to go over that again. When we get to the end of the chorus, now we're looking at 2 coda. The reason we need a coda here is because even though we're going to hit the same last chord, that chord is going to go longer, and then that leads us into the solo. So I'll just do the end of chorus 2, starting from, I'll do the last 4 measures into the coda. So. And that's the chord that's longer, that B flat sus2, during the epic drum fill. And now we get to the main solo. Unlike the last solo, this solo is pretty predictable. What I've seen of him live, pretty much exactly the same way. There may be a little bit fudging in the middle, but nothing is like super physically taxing or something where it's like, just like a fast random riff that he plays differently every time. It's mostly pretty predictable. A lot of whammy bar stuff here though, which is pretty cool. So starting off on the G string, you'll also notice a lot of times when there's whammy bar shenanigans, it happens a lot on the G and B strings. I've seen some bad transcriptions of all sorts of stuff that have you doing these like insane whammy bar dives on something on the first string. But if you have a standard set of 10s, for example, I don't use 9s. I actually don't know what John Petrucci uses. Now that I'm doing this, I really should know that, right? But standard set of 10s, you don't get much out of the first string with a whammy bar dive because it's a little higher tension. But the G is, on most sets of strings, most standard sets of 10s, the lowest tension string. So you actually get the most out of it. So a lot of times when you see these whammy bar things happening, it's happening on the 3rd string. Being that it's a lower tension string, I think you get more note variation out of when you bend it using the whammy bar. So just like a lower tension string is easier to bend. So So sometimes I'm picking notes as I do the dive. Sometimes I'm letting the hammer-on or pull-off do the work for me. First one, better to pick. Both those notes are easy to pick because as you dive, the pick can hit the pick can hit the string, right? Here we're on the second string. After the pull-off from G to F, 6 to 8, and I'm sliding and depressing the whammy bar at the same time. And picking all at the same time. So you get that kind of wacky sound out of it. And again, every time you see the vibrato, the wider vibrato, that's my notation for always using the bar. All right, this nice little D minor lick. So this whole solo is in D minor, touching on D Dorian. So a little pre-bend on 12. Of course, that straight up arrow meaning you strike the string, you bend the string before you strike it. Almost always when you have a pre-bend in a solo, you'll either have a rest beforehand, or you might even just have a like a staccato note. Just give the guitar player that little extra moment to do the bend first. I'm just moving my hand down. These are eighth notes, so it's not crazy fast. I'm using index finger for 10 and 9. Next lick is just a little bit funny. A little F arpeggio, and then a little bit ending on F over here. So that whole lick, starting from the pickup, on the pre-bend, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's right. For some reason, I like to play this lick with pointer, ring, pointer. I don't know, I just find it easier. But it's all slow enough. You could do textbook, pointer, pinky, middle. All right, the next riff, just watch out because when I see the same frets a lot of times, I start to get a little bit, start to go a little cross-eyed, like, oh, I see the same notes being played over and over again. Really watch out for the rhythm here because the rhythm is what makes this part unique. So, or it kind of makes it stand out and worthwhile. Or actually, I could pull off that last part, so. Follow the slides for the correct fingering. I'll play it one more time if you're following along and trying to get it. Then you're going to do this great big jump and then an octave and a bend. This isn't super clear, but this is a slide in measure 70 and measure 79. This is a slide off of 19 and then a slide back to 17. It's one of like those guitar player ticks where you may have licks in the same location, but where you're just sliding down and then back up to exactly where you came from. Then this one, watch out, because this is a little bit of a quick thing here. To make this lick pretty easy, I'm actually economy picking this. Not sure how John Petrucci does it, but I'm going down, up, up. And then next lick is pretty straightforward after that. The important thing here is he's doing 2 slides in a row. Again, a kind of guitar player tick where you can slide, move your hand back to where it was, and then right back again. So I'll play that whole bit from when we jump up to that octave. Pretty self-explanatory there. The next part, another great exercise. John Petrucci's, one of his favorite techniques on this record is to do this double picking, as we said, and double picking combined with playing phrases in fifths. So I'm going to use this opportunity to really buckle down on how to get this to sound nice, because this is something that really threw me off until my friend Dan White wrote this amazing book showing picking angle, Troy Grady's videos do a great job of showing like the angle that your pick hits the string. But basically what I realized is to get these double things happening, and this pertains to the intro of Fortune Lies as well, to get this Now, I'm picking as I normally would just on one string. A lot of wrist, not too much elbow, but the number one thing is wherever you're generating the force from, be relaxed, nice and loose. But the key here is also, imagine I'm holding a coffee cup, like by the ring, you know, and pouring it out away from me. And that would cause my pick angle to be at a certain, you know, it hits the string at a certain angle. So this way, I'm always going down, up, and then changing. So after my upstroke, I've pulled away from the string just enough where I can go down to the next string. So this is a little bit of a funny phrase, because even though it's built in fifths, the beginning of it is a fourth. But then after that, it's predictable. So if we kind of ignore those first two notes, that's just the beginning, then it's a series of power chords. So the last two bits here are on the same string. That gets us halfway through measure 83. So that counts as a power chord too. The fifth, even though of course we have the tuning on those strings. After we've gotten halfway there, it gets a little more predictable again, and we don't have to change strings so much anymore. Just on first and second, second and first. Oh, sorry, yeah. So not all power chords. We're starting with sixth, minor sixth. So it's still power chords, it's just backwards. Sorry. Again, the syndrome of playing something slow that I've been playing nice enough to speed for a few months now. So the way I am thinking of this as power chords, but now instead of the low note starting it, now I'm thinking of the high note as starting the power chord, so the fifth down to root. And the first example is actually the flat five, F to B, 13 to 12. And I'm playing this just as if I had played chords. And I'm doing that pick angle thing that's letting me switch strings. Then finally, the bend to an E. I said the solo's in, excuse me, said the solo is in D minor, but you'll notice the B naturals here to give it, to make it actually B Dorian for that part. So. One more time, I'll do it a little slow, try to do it right. And then one more time, we'll do that run kind of quick. That brings us to the bridge, just simple power chords. Eventually I'll stop harping on it, but this is only the second video, so I'll keep mentioning that 2 or 3 note power chord. I don't know, since they're long, I'm playing 3 notes. The next one, B flat sus2. The sus2 is definitely on the keys, and I'm not quite sure if it's on guitar. Even when I do that karaoke mode that I talked about before, since keys are usually a stereo sound, it doesn't eliminate the keys, so I can't quite tell if it's B sus2, a B flat sus2, or just B power chord, B flat power chord. So I'm playing the B flat sus2. Might as well, right? So here's our bridge. Don't forget second ending. Little rest on the end of 4, which gives you time to go into the last chorus. And the last chorus is essentially the same as the other 2 choruses, so. I'm not doing that big C sus2 at the end. Just a regular power chord, because this gets me to the key change and really like the extra chorus at the end, or the key change of the chorus. So now we're just going to move into G minor and do essentially the same thing. We don't have the benefits of the open strings, and there's a couple little changes here. So we're starting off just a G minor arpeggio, And again, this is most likely a combination of what you hear on the record, because live he's playing this a little simpler, especially in that 2004 performance. So G minor. Now the same scale run we had before. Now this is cool. This is the kind of unique part with this little rising bit. Now, you're hearing the keyboard go up and up and up and up, really up the scale with a couple sixths and mostly power chords, but the last guitar chord, instead of going to the high D, he goes to the lower D power chord. So I'll play that starting halfway through the first line of the key change chorus. I'll play the whole first line of the key change chorus, so you hear all that. Now the last line of the song, unfortunate page turn, but here we are. The opposite run, just like before, but now in our new key. Last two chords. If you see vibrato on a chord, it's also done with the whammy bar, but when Petrucci does vibrato on a chord, it's generally pretty gentle. Also, if you're looking this in PDF form, there should be a fermata over this, but PowerTab does not export, or I can't get PowerTab to export the fermatas. Fermata is that little like eyebrow eye thing that it just means hold the note. So yeah, that is the end of Status Seeker, and Yitzy Jam's coming next.